the most mature child in the room often becomes the most lost adult. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? The one everyone called an old soul, the responsible one, the child who seemed to have it all figured out while their peers were still, well, being children. We praise them for their precociousness. We admire their composure. But what if that early maturity was actually a debt, borrowed from their future? What if the people who bloom the earliest are actually the ones who are destined to bloom the latest? This isn't about intelligence or talent. This is about a hidden psychological phenomenon where a childhood spent meeting adult expectations leaves the real, authentic self underdeveloped and waiting. So, why does this happen? Why do those who seemed so far ahead find themselves in their 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or even 40 seconds, feeling like they're just starting to figure out who they are? Let's explore the psychology behind why early bloomers are often the most profound late bloomers. First, let's talk about a concept in psychology known as parentification. This is when a child is placed in a position where they have to take on the emotional or practical responsibilities of an adult. Think about the child who became their mother's confidant after a divorce, listening to anxieties no child should have to carry. Or the eldest sibling who essentially raised their younger brothers and sisters because their parents were always working. These children are praised for being so helpful and incredibly mature. But this maturity comes at a high cost. They learn to be caretakers before they learn to be themselves. Imagine a young girl. Let's call her Maya. Her home life is chaotic. Her parents fight constantly, and she learns that the only way to bring peace is to become the mediator. She learns to read the emotional temperature of a room, to soothe frayed nerves, to be the calm in the storm. At school, her teachers love her. She's responsible, she never causes trouble, she gets perfect grades. She is the model child. But what happens when Maya grows up? She enters adulthood and finds herself in relationships where she is constantly overfunctioning, managing her partner's emotions, and taking on all the responsibility. She feels resentful and exhausted, but she doesn't know any other way to be. She never had a chance to be messy, to be spontaneous, to simply play. Her entire childhood was a job, and now, as an adult, she has no idea how to clock out. You were given a CEO's responsibilities on a child's emotional salary. This leads to a profound developmental delay. While she mastered adult tasks early on, she missed crucial childhood milestones, developing a sense of spontaneous play, learning to set boundaries, and discovering her own needs. So, in her 30 seconds, when everyone else is settling down, Maya feels a strange urge to rebel, to be irresponsible, to have the childhood she never got. The second reason is that for many precocious children, their identity is built on a foundation of performance. Their sense of worth isn't based on who they are, but on what they do. They are the gifted student, the talented musician, the good kid who never disappoints. The influential psychoanalyst Winnicott introduced the concepts of the true self and the false self. The true self is our spontaneous, authentic core, who we are when we're not trying to impress anyone. The false self is a protective mask we wear to meet the expectations of others and gain their approval. For the child who had to grow up too fast, the false self becomes their dominant identity. Consider Alex. From a very young age, he was praised for his intellect. His parents celebrated his report cards, his science fair trophies, his debate team wins. Love and approval in his family were conditional upon achievement. He learned that to be valued, he had to be brilliant. He buried his anxieties, his confusion, his desire to just play video games, and instead, he performed the role of the gifted child perfectly. He goes on to a prestigious university and lands a high-powered job. On the outside, he's the definition of success, but inside, he feels like a fraud. He feels empty. Now that the external validation is less frequent, the silence is deafening. He asks himself, if I'm not the smartest guy in the room, who am I? His true self, the part of him that has unique desires, passions, and feelings, was never nurtured. It was deemed less important than the high-achieving false self. Your childhood was a performance, and you're only now realizing you never wrote the script. This realization often triggers what feels like a delayed identity crisis, a period where individuals must dismantle the facade they've so carefully constructed to find the person underneath. Third, The child who is mature beyond their years is often a master of emotional suppression. In an environment that is unstable or emotionally neglectful, a child quickly learns that their own feelings, their fear, their sadness, their anger, are a liability. They are an inconvenience to the adults around them. So, they learn to silence them. They become the strong one, the one who doesn't cry, the one who never complains. This isn't true maturity. It's a survival strategy. They become emotionally self-sufficient because they have no other choice. A child learns to silence their own needs so they can better hear everyone else's. Think of a boy named Ben. His father lost his job, and the stress in the house was palpable. Ben saw his mother crying and decided he couldn't add to her burden. When he was sad, he went to his room. When he was scared, he told himself to man up. He became a tiny pillar of strength for his family, never asking for comfort, never showing vulnerability. Fast forward 20 years. Ben is in a loving relationship, but his partner says he's emotionally distant. They complain, "I never know what you're feeling." And the truth is, Ben doesn't know either. His emotional landscape is a foreign country to him. He can logically solve problems. He can offer practical support, but he is a late bloomer in the language of feelings. He struggles with intimacy because true intimacy requires vulnerability, the very thing he was taught to suppress. The lack of emotional expression in childhood can stifle the brain's ability to develop healthy coping mechanisms. So, what happens when these early bloomers reach a breaking point? When the parentified adult can no longer carry everyone, when the performer gets tired of the stage, when the emotional suppressor can't hold it in anymore. They often enter what psychologists call a second adolescence. It's a messy, confusing, and absolutely vital period of rediscovery. It's the delayed identity versus role confusion stage that psychologist Erik Erikson said was supposed to happen in our teens. For them, it's happening now. This can look like quitting the perfect job to become an artist. It can look like ending a long-term relationship that was built on the old, false self. It can look like suddenly picking up skateboarding at 40, or traveling the world, or finally going to therapy to meet the child inside who was never allowed to speak. This isn't a midlife crisis, it's a midlife awakening. It's the true self, after years of being silent, finally demanding to be heard. It is the beginning of authentic, genuine maturity. It's a time to finally give yourself permission to explore, to fail, to be imperfect, and to discover what you actually want, not what you were conditioned to want. We have a cultural obsession with prodigies and early achievement, but we rarely talk about the psychological price of a stolen childhood. The idea that people who mature early are often late bloomers isn't a story of failure. It's a story of incredible resilience. It's about the courage to dismantle a life that looks perfect on the outside, to build one that feels right on the inside. It's about understanding that your past shaped you, but it does not have to define your future. The lateness of your bloom is not a sign that you are behind. It is a sign that you are finally planting your own garden, on your own terms. True maturity isn't about when you start. It's about having the courage to start over. It's about the journey back to your most authentic self, no matter how long it takes. And that is a bloom worth waiting for. Does this story resonate with you? Did you feel like you had to grow up too fast? Share your experience in the comments below. You'd be surprised how many people share this journey. And if you're interested in more deep dives into the psychology of how we live and love, make sure to follow. Thanks for watching.